Already in the first post-war years, negative trends began to be exposed in agriculture, which immediately have the character of gradually developing prerequisite for a future crisis. So, in 1949-1953, the average annual grain harvest amounted to only 4.9 billion puts, with an average yield in the country of 7.7 centners per hectare, which was only slightly more than in 1910-1914. Correspondingly, 4.4 billion puts and 7.0 centers per hectare. Contrary of the declaration made from the rostrum of the 19th Congress of the CPSU, the gross grain harvest in 1952 gave not 8 but 5.6 billion puts. If we count not by bunker, weight and losses from storage, the probably even less. Even after the withdrawal of all seed and material from the collective farms and state farms, only 2.1 billion puts of grains were produced there. There was a clear shortage of demand. With the growing population, especially in cities and industrial centers, the demand for grain again increases sharply. Meanwhile, as noted above, in 1953 the country produced a little more than 31 million tons of grain, having spent 32 million tons. The defect have to be made up from states reverse. Meanwhile, the idea of virgin lands put forward by the February-March 1954 plenum of the Central Committee of the party was by no means inevitable or necessary. Nevertheless, if we take into account that up to 1.52 centuries of grain is embedded into a virgin healthcare, and no more, an average 6-9 centuries of harvest in 1954-1958, the average yield was at the level of 7.3 centers per hectare, and in 1961-1965, 6.1 centers per hectare. Then the question of economic feasibility will appear very relevant. The magnitude of production cost was also influenced by the scales of attracting labor resources. Every year, a lot of students, urban residents, combined operation machine operated from other regions and republics were attracted to the virgin lands for harvesting. However, individual elements of the reform gave temporary score to the development of the economy. This was shown in particular by the result of the Wait 5 Years Plan 1966-1970, and one of the best in the country's history. In Kazakhstan, the gross social product has increased by 1.5 times over the year. The volume of industrial production increased by 1.6 times. By the end of the 5 years plan, in 1970, 70% of the increase in output in the industrial sector was obtained by increasing the efficiency of production, while in 1965 in 40%. However, all this huge national economic potential was thwarted by the system and non-market imperatives, largely making the course of the economy ineffective and sometimes idle. All this was especially intensified in subsequent years, which went down in history a period of stagnation.